Good evening. I'm the Maven of the Eventide, and I like books. So recently, I talked to you guys about all of my vampire books. And after I made that video, several of you said, "Hey, Maven, I would like to send you a vampire book." And you did. So I'm going to talk about the books that I have received or gotten on my own since the last time I made that vampire books video. So there's already not room enough for these on my shelf. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I guess I can put some up at the very top where the toys are, but then where will the toys go? So these are in no particular order. I've just sort of made a pile. This is a Dracula graphic novel with some really cool art. I love the way they designed Mina. I'm so excited to read this. Add it to my Dracula graphic novel collection. Growing. This book was given to me by the author, a fellow panelist at a vampire movies panel that I did at Convergence recently. It was a great panel. I wish you could have been there. And this author is Tim Leader, and it's called She Nailed a Stake Through His Head, Tales of Biblical Terror. And the summary says, this book takes the Bible back from the right-wing fascists who want to rewrite it as a tedious book of loving and caring. These are stories as bawdy and lustful and horrifying as the original good book. Wild sex, savage violence, horrific curses, and of course, vampires. Intriguing. These are two of the Vampire Hunter D novels, translated to English. Did you know that these are not graphic novels? They're just actual novels. These are actually books 1 and 3 of the many book series from the 1980s. And these are the two books that the Vampire Hunter D movies that exist were made on. They did not make a movie of book 2, just 1 and 3. So when I ever actually get around to reviewing those movies, I can read the books and speak about them in a more in-depth fashion, so thank you. This is Strange Practice by Vivian Shaw, a novel, and I actually did not realize there were vampires in this. Lindsay gave this to me as a birthday gift, and I would have mentioned it in my last video, which was after my birthday, but I did not realize there were vampires in this book until someone mentioned it to me. Yes, there is a person in a coffin on it, but as we are to understand, this doctor character treats supernatural creatures, but the blurb doesn't actually mention vampires. So I was thinking that it was one of those books that has all the supernaturals except vampires because vampires are so dull and everyone's over them now. But maybe they just didn't mention it for that reason. Though, you know, if I had known it had vampires, I would have been even more all for it. I cannot wait to read this. This is the brand new Curse of Straud, which was sent to me after I did my last Straud review, so now I can read about the new current Straud, and it is so shiny. This is such a gorgeous book. The most current version of Straud in all his glory to go with D&D's 5th edition. This is the entire Kim Newman Anno Dracula series, which was sent to me by someone who was cleaning out his library and wanted an appropriate home for his spookier books, so he sent them to me, which was amazing. All of the Anno Draculas. I had my work cut out for me. The same person also sent me this illustrated special edition of Salem's Lot, which I have never actually read, and it's got some really cool illustrations in it. Creepy and classic. Also, another David J. Skull book. My dude, my bro, this is The Monster Show, which talks about how horror movies evolved with what was going on socially at the time. So what movies were popular after wars, what movies were popular during different political movements, during civil unrest, and how horror movies spoke to the people. And of course, there is a section on vampires here, which I have read that section already. I haven't read the rest of the book, but very fascinating. David J. Skull can do no wrong. And lastly, sent by the very same wonderful person from the very same what must have been an awesome library, which is now partially mine, is The Lost by Jonathan Aycliffe, a novel of dark discoveries. Here we have Dusted and Redeemed, the unauthorized guides to Angel and Buffy, basically wikis in book form. And they have everything in it. I've already showed these to a Buffy expert friend of mine, and she has deemed them quite awesome indeed. So whenever I do finally tackle Buffy and Angel, which I've been putting off just because it's so much, but I have a Patreon goal for that. I've got the resources. Here we have the entire box set of Bunnicula, which was sent to me by a Patreon patron who has requested that I review this. And this is actually what I'm reviewing coming up very soon. So I better start reading these. It's only 7 books. It's only like, what, 800 pages of vampire bunny rabbits? Bunnicula, A Rabbit Tale of Mystery, The Holiday Inn, Nighty Nightmare, The Celery Stalks at Midnight. Important puns for vampire children's books. Return to Holiday Inn. Bunnicula Strikes Again. And of course, Bunnicula meets Edgar Allan Poe. I'm excited. Speaking of vampire children's books, I forgot to mention the vampire children's books I already owned. Well, owned by my fledgling spawn, but he let me borrow them so I could share them with you. This is The Zombie and the Vampire, which is by a local artist that I got at a local Comic-Con, and it is a retelling of The Tortoise and the Hare with a zombie and a vampire. My 2 things. And my child likes this book. It is autographed to him. It says, "To Gray, use your brains." Of course it would have a zombie pun in it. But isn't it pretty? It's funny too. This is Dracula Accounting Primer, which my child has had since before he was born. 1, 1 castle. 2, 2 friends. 3, 3 wolves. Yes, this book featured in one of my past reviews. You may recall it, but it is adorable. It's actually from a collection of classics designed for educational for preschoolers. Besides the Dracula one, we have the Frankenstein one, the Jane Eyre one, the Wuthering Heights one, several of the Edgar Allan Poe ones. Yeah, a full Gothic library for my fledgling spawn. And lastly, this is Boris and Bella, which is an odd couple story. Boris is a very uptight, neat freak vampire, and Bella is a very sloppy, messy, some kind of swamp monster. And it's, a moral tale for children, but it's full of monsters. It's wonderful. That's it for books for now, but I realized that last time I forgot to talk about a couple of my shelf knickknacks that have been featured in my videos since the very beginning. And I stopped using them on my shelf because, I switch things out, keep things fresh. But I wanted to tell you about them because this quill and ink pot I've had since I was 12, 13 years old, that I actually got at the Tower of London in a childhood trip, and I've saved it all this time, and it has always sat on my vampire gothic shelf. When I was at the Tower of London, I told the tour guide, I love ravens. Because, they have ravens there. That's like what they do at the Tower of London. And I thought the tour guide would think I was cool because, they have ravens, and he works at the Tower of London, a literal torture chamber. But nope, he turned to me and he said, "You are a very sick girl." Except in like a fancy British accent, which made it sound even more condescending. This is a pretty atomizer, which, you can shoot poison into people's mouths with if you want, or use it for non-gothic things if you must. Skeleton Bride and Groom. This was a wedding gift, of course. This is the only Halloween decoration I own. Every other decoration in my house is just a decoration, but I thought I should have a Halloween decoration several Halloweens ago when I was living with roommates, so I bought this adorable little Grim Reaper guy. I love the Grim Reaper. He's my dude. And I set him on the TV stand and I said, "Happy Halloween. Here's a Halloween decoration." And he's kind of hung around ever since. Lastly, this is a Porto Sandeman port bottle. It has a cork on the top and his hat comes off, and that's where the port was in. And I bought it because it looked like the Phantom of the Opera or some kind of vampire creature, and it's always lived on my shelf. I used to have the poster that went with it, which is a classic port poster with the yellow background, just because I thought it looked fan to me. But this is one of my very cool collections. I actually have a lot of Phantom of the Opera merchandise. Like a lot more than what we're talking about here collection-wise. hundreds, thousands of things. And some people have asked me if I would make a video like this, just showing you all of my phantom junk. If you'd actually like to watch that, let me know. Maybe I'll make it a Patreon stretch goal or something. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed these vampire books, gave you some more to look out for to do your vampire book shopping, which everyone ought to do. I will be posting another vampire review for you early next week, so until then, be one with the night. Blah.